Sometimes fans are in disbelief when they see their favorites not signing contracts just to snag a few extra millions. When you're making so much money, what difference does $1 million really make? And when they come to do interviews about how they need to feed their family, it can be hard for fans to stomach. But it's worth remembering that many of the stars on the field didn't come from much. The players face all kinds of hardships before they found their golden goose, and it was through their dedication and hard work that they've been able to build million-dollar brands and business empires. In this video, we'll be taking you through the craziest rags to riches stories in the NFL. Starting off with number 10, Tyrann Mathieu. Before he was old enough to read, Tyrann's father was convicted and sent to prison, leaving the young Mathieu in the care of his grandparents. The home was not stable, but the biggest crisis would unfold when Hurricane Katrina destroyed the family's home, leaving them with nothing. Despite this, he managed to go to LSU on a full ride. Before entering the NFL, the Cardinal had a really tough season and fell to last place on the league's 2013 draft boards. To go from that to one of the highest earners on the Arizona team, props to him. Number 9, James Jones. Before Jones began playing for the Raiders and then the Packers, he had an incredibly tragic story. From the moment he was born until the age of 15, he was a homeless youth, drifting through homeless shelters and motels. His father and mother dealt with substance abuse issues. This gave Jones the motivation he needed to give football his all, and when he moved in with his grandmother, he finally found the stability he needed to succeed. Number 8, Demaryius Thomas. During the 6th grade, police broke down the door of Thomas's home. They arrested his mother and grandmother on federal charges of conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute, a very serious allegation that could put them away for decades. After that moment, Thomas drifted across various homes and shelters before landing with his aunt, who took him under his wing. He managed to overcome his former life, going to Georgia Tech before being drafted in the first round to the Broncos. Number 7, Michael Sam. Sam made history when he was the first non-straight football player to be drafted in the NFL while being on an active roster. That's enough adversity on its own, but it wasn't his greatest challenge. Sam was the 7th of 8 children in a very poor family. During one tough time, he had to share the backseat of his mother's car when they had nowhere else to live. He beat the odds. 3 of his siblings, though, have passed away and another 2 are serving time. Number 6, Brandon Marshall. Sometimes you see players like Marshall who are attracted to controversy like a moth to a flame, and you can't help but wonder why. The most likely explanation is that he really hasn't known much else. When he was younger, his mother was a victim to all kinds of domestic abuse by his father. In 1991, when police raided the home, finding all kinds of illegal substances, they locked his father away for good. Marshall would eventually become one of the best receivers of the 2010s, but he has had more than a few encounters with the law. Number 5, Michael Oher. Oher managed to escape from a horrifyingly violent childhood in North Memphis, Tennessee, to become one of the league's most cherished offensive linemen. You might recognize Oher from the movie The Blind Side, where we see his journey portrayed by Sandra Bullock, Quentin Aaron, and Tim McGraw. If you were wondering whether any of that was real, it was. Real life was even nastier than the movie version, though, as they had to cut out some pieces that weren't appropriate for a movie-going audience. Number 4, Adam Pac-Man Jones. As fans, we don't get much insight in the goings-on of the heads of the NFL stars, and Jones carried a lot of baggage from him throughout his career. When he was in elementary school, Jones heard gunshots outside. When he ran out, he found his father had been hit and succumbed to the wounds. He was raised by his mother and grandmother, who eventually found his way to the NFL, but the struggle only continued for him. Only 2 years into playing for Brooklyn, a judge ordered that he pay $11 million for his role in a shooting outside a Vegas club. Thankfully, though, it seems like he's managed to turn things around. Number 3, Darnell Dockett. When Dockett was a kid, he became much more familiar with tragedy and crime than with the game of football. At 13 years old, Dockett came home to discover his mother lifeless on the floor. His father ended up passing away shortly after that due to a long bout with pancreatic cancer. As he made his way through college, his rough ride continued. He was scoring very poorly in his grades, and he emanated a lawless aura to the scouters, with many in his team accusing him of being a shoplifter. Thankfully, the Cardinals took a chance on the player, and he's paid back that chance in dividends. Number 2, Jimmy Graham. This football star is now worth over $25 million, but before that, he was only worth $98. That's the amount his father refused to pay his mother and child support payments. Because he wasn't being taken care of, he was then released to the state, but the state home wasn't any better. He's spoken about how when he was at the group home, a group of teenagers would take turns beating him up, and when he would call his mom asking for advice, she would just hang up on him. Things would turn around for him, meeting Becky Vincent at church, who took him in and helped him become a star athlete. Number 1, Tamba Hali. Hali was born in war-torn Liberia. The violence was so bad that by the age of 9, his family fled the countryside, getting by on whatever scraps they could find. Things were looking dire for the family, who fled to the Ivory Coast. After being granted visas to the US due to their extreme living situations, he had to leave his mother behind in Africa, since the government had only given them children's visas. When Hali Holly finally became a citizen in 2006, the first thing he did was reunite with his mother in America. That's all the time that we have for today. What did you think of this video? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay up to date on all our videos.